Hello, welcome to this episode of Psychedelic Ministry. I am Dina Justice, the human doing, and Dolly Grace, the infinite being. I am the minister of magic here at your service. Today, I'm going to talk about loving yourself where you're at. I've been having an interesting experience getting ready for this video today. Our plans changed. My partner and I were supposed to run an errand that is nearly a year overdue to buy him a flute, which was his birthday gift last November. And I got all prepared to go, and we're not going. So I'm doing other things, and a bunch of stuff started to come through my mind, right? I always follow the inspiration in any moment about what kind of content to create. I'm not necessarily going to schedule a bunch of things like, oh, I'm going to talk about this and this and this. Yes, I have all sorts of sticky notes and things organized for content, but that stuff is what ends up being my courses, my programs, my digital content that people can come and purchase from Ecstatic Collective. The content that I'm putting out in Psychedelic Ministry is the content that I'm inspired by in any given moment. And what that speaks to is like the relevance of what's here and now, which ties into the content for today. Loving ourselves where we're at. I think a lot of people can probably relate. So put your hand up if you relate to this. Always being in judgment of yourself. Oh, I'm not where I want to be. Oh, I don't have this finished. Oh, I don't have that completed. Oh, I didn't actually finish that. I walked away from it. Oh, I'm X age and I expected to be in Y location in my life, finances, relationships, whatever it might be. There's always these outside parameters by which we may be marking time, marking progress. And if we're not at those places, there's some sort of judgment that comes at us from inside, but maybe also from outside that says, oh, you're bad, you're wrong, you're less than, you're not enough, you're not worthy. Any number of the big limiting beliefs, limiting projections that we may hit up against in our external world, but also inside of us. So I'm noticing, like, in this moment, my energy feels a lot more reserved than sometimes I am when I get on video or audio to make recordings. And I know what that is for me. It's like this content hits really, really deep inside of me. This is the number one skill that I was not taught and definitely not modeled in the world. And there's one incredible thing I know more than anything as a human, having learned from so many people along the way. All learning is unconscious, especially for children. Children are constantly absorbing all of the things in their environment in a greater capacity because they're still in that sponge-like stage. Their brains are actually in a different set of wavelengths. I forget which one it is off the top of my head. So their ability to receive information organize, store, retain information is much greater because they're in an incredible learning process. They are in what I refer to as our first non-ordinary state of consciousness, which is about the first 7 or 8 years of life. Sometimes we might get a little bit longer, depending on the child. And what's happening is all of their learning is unconscious. What are they being exposed to that they are literally, that information is writing their operating system, that is installing them and programming them with their operating system. How is that operating system either helping them or hurting them? Okay, so this, even more than ever, is so critical because we have so much input coming at us. Mass media, screens in our pockets. The kids get screens. We don't have a TV in our home, and screen time is restricted here. And we talk about why that is and how detrimental it is to our brain functioning and our whole being wellness. But the most important factor is, like, what are we allowing in here that may not be serving us? So coming back to this, learning is unconscious. Our parents, the people that are in our immediate surroundings and have the most impact on us every day, especially those first 7 or 8 years of life, that's where a significant amount of our operating system is coming from. So if we do not receive good modeling by the people we are most surrounded by in those first 7 or 8 years, that has long-lasting impacts on us. I did not receive positive modeling to love myself where I'm at. That's a skill I learned in my late 30s and early 40s. For the last 7 years, that's what I've been learning. And yes, there are ways in which I did that. And it was very surface level, very situational. And I always felt like I had to defend myself in order to love myself where I was at. Because of all of that conditioning, all of that operating system, all of that programming that actually hurt me, it didn't help me. And it's only been in the last 7 years that I've stripped back and peeled back layer after layer after layer to finally get to the place where I feel like I got to love myself wholeheartedly from an aligned, grounded, congruent place inside of me, where I feel like I'm a wholly integrated being and not fragmented and compartmentalized to try to meet whatever situation I am in. I get to be all of me, and I always get to love myself where I'm at. So I'll give you a little bit more context here. 2016 is when I started my business. I have had great success. I created a 6-figure business easily and effortlessly with very little input, like clients just arrived to me. There were things that I did in order to put myself out there, and social media was not a big aspect of that. It was me being live in front of people, hosting my own events. I run meetup groups in multiple cities because that's my jam. I am great in front of people and I love to connect live with people. I also, growing up, I hid from the video camera. Every time we had a family event and my grandfather had the video or the camcorder out, I would hide. We have watched family videos in the last decade, and people are always like, where's Dina? I'm like, I was hiding from grandpa, right? And that, again, that's all of my conditioning. That came from me not feeling like I was enough. I also refused to be recorded like my voice. My voice now does not sound like it did for most of my life. That's a whole different video. At some point, it's will probably be linked here, or the podcast will be linked. And I know now that the pitch, the tonality, and the speed of my voice came from multiple factors, including trauma. Trauma quite literally winds us up inside, and it affects our vocal cords. It affects how we speak. I never felt like I had the right to take up time and space, so I would talk as fast as I could to try to get my message out and to be heard, but then to also shrink back and play small. So in the last 7 years of my life, and it's been longer than that, but the last 7 is like the chunk of my significant growth. I would say, like, coming back to my voice, starting in high school, I would be told all the time how annoying my voice was. And it was something that came at me from a lot of people. Typically, if we hear it from a couple of people, we might think that's about them. When we start to get a lot of feedback from multiple places, that becomes something we internalize, right? So throughout my life, I spent decades intentionally working on my voice. I would write scripts to record my voice message, when people reach my voicemail. And then I would record it over and over and over, lowering my voice, slowing it down, feeling like I was putting the right inflection, the right intonations into it so that it landed the way I wanted it to land, right? I even started at the beginning of this video saying, like, I feel my energy is a lot more in here, right? This is core for me. My voice has been a significant energy movement, a significant part of my journey, because I grew up not feeling like I was heard, right? Wow, this video seems to be turning into something very different than I thought it was going to be, and I'm going to roll with it because this is what's here. Again, I'm taking inspired action. So what's the root of that? What's the core of this? Well, there's all sorts of layers. I was sexually abused as a child from the time I was pre-verbal, we think infancy, until somewhere around age 8. Somewhere around age 4, I started to protect myself pretty well. So I don't know what the extent of the abuse was after that. I've blocked most of it out. I had a handful of pretty strong, very vivid memories. And it's only been in the last couple of years through my work with psychedelics that I've been able to free myself from that prison I lived inside of in my mind, where it felt like it was constantly happening in real time, right? So at 41 years old, I finally freed myself from the prison I lived inside of my mind. So what are other things that happen? We know that the mind-body connection is a real thing. I started to get really, really sick. Ear, nose, throat issues. I developed really severe allergies to everything in my environment. The place where I was being abused was very dirty. Farm animals, etc. I developed allergies to all of those things. If I was sick, I couldn't go there, right? So that was a way in which my mind body pre-verbal was learning to protect myself. I was so sick and I had such significant ear problems that I couldn't hear properly. Therefore, I didn't speak until after they did surgery. They took out my tonsils, my adenoids, and put tubes in my ears to keep them drained. I have significant scarring in my right ear, and I actually prefer people to talk to me in my left ear because it's easier for me to hear them. I can hear great out of both sides. It's just a personal preference. My sister and I have talked extensively about this because she remembers me talking to her as a child, and I remember talking to her as a child. So I think my sister was probably the only person I actually talked to before I started talking around age 3. I say all of this because there's a lot more encased in it. When they tell me I could finally talk and hear, I was also speed reading books out loud. I know I could hear my mother and my father read to me because I knew what the book said. I'd memorized the books at 3 years old, right? So, and there's me already going really fast, right? Let me talk as fast as possible, though they never heard me do that until I was 4, probably. So then what really happened? My mother and I have talked about this. Apparently, we were taking some class maybe at school that was about our bodies and privacy and consent. And I told my mom, at 4 years old, I said, don't make me go back there. I'm not safe. And I wasn't heard. And I want to also say, like, this is through no fault of my mom, okay? My mom was doing the best she could with what she had. But that moment, that day when I told her I wasn't safe, literally created a significant part of my operating system up until 2 years ago when I was 41. Breathing, because I realize how much all of this has changed in the last 2 years since I finally got free of the abuse. Inside of me, the abuse that was trapped in my mind and the abuse that was trapped in my body. All right. So as I have worked through this, things have changed, right? The first time I spoke up for myself in a big way and said, I'm not safe, I wasn't heard. What does that do to one's ability to use their voice and feel empowered? That's a significant aspect of this, right? And then I struggled all my life to ask for a glass of water, to ask to use the restroom, to ask for my needs to get met. So utilizing my voice was challenging. So when I did do it, it was consistently coming from a place of fear, anxiety. I'm not going to be heard. I'm going to be shut down. I'm going to be told no. I'm going to be made wrong or bad for expressing what I need. So these are the impacts to the child inside of me trying to use her voice. All of this created more and more tension and trauma inside of me. So my voice became very high pitched. This is what I used to sound like most of the time. Okay. It's been through consistent, intentional work with my own voice, as well as healing the trauma that allows me to talk the way I do now. I have other videos about the ages and stages of Dina that are actually incredibly relevant. There's an entire video all about Dina, and I demonstrate a lot with my voice in that video. I will link it. I'm learning how to do this, so there will be a link. This is me loving myself where I'm at. I've watched enough YouTube videos to know some of the things I need to do, and I'm still learning. I'm not trying to do it perfectly. I'm showing up to do it perfectly imperfect because I know my message has impact Oh, there's the tears already welling. After my significant psychedelic experience 2 years ago with a guide where I released the trauma, I knew I had to share my story in a big way. There were so many layers to that because it meant I had to use my voice for good. I got to share my message. You can link to that also. There's an episode, a podcast episode on Psychedelics Today called The Frequency of Safety, or Finding the Frequency of Safety. There's also a video here on Lucid News, which I will also link. I knew I needed to share my experience utilizing psychedelics intentionally to heal from trauma. And in the 2 years since I did that, I have continued to get messages of gratitude from other people who are trapped in their own internal prisons from the trauma that they've experienced. And they reach out to me and they say, "Thank you for giving me hope. Thank you for letting me know that I can get out of this trauma prison." I've spent the last 2 years doing even deeper work to love myself where I'm at so that I can actually show up and put my work into the world. There's a whole host of things that have led to this moment. I always trust the divine perfection and timing of the universe because I've learned to trust myself. And everything the universe is giving me is a reflection of what's going on right here. I know I'm ready for this in a big way. And I know because some of the people nearest and dearest to me have told me that they're finally healing their own trauma because I gave them hope. And when people that close to me tell me that, I know I need to show up in service to what I've learned and what I've discovered and what I know is possible for other people. I'm here in psychedelic ministry to be in service to psychedelics, really. And when I say that, it's always coming from an intentional, grounded, empowered place. I use psychedelics for healing work. They are not to have a good time. I wish I could do that sometimes. Psychedelics have given me back me. That's why I do them. If you happen to be watching this video from a place of judgment or criticism because I take psychedelics, go do your research. The research is incredible. The Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies was founded in the 80s after MDMA, which is commonly known as ecstasy, got put on Schedule 1, meaning that it's illegal, addictive, and has zero medical use. Yet therapists spent years trying to stop that from happening. And since it got scheduled, they've spent decades working to get it unscheduled because of its therapeutic value. I know that therapeutic value. Wow. This is not the video I expected to be making. And yes, you get to hear me blowing my nose because I'm human and I get to be human in this message because it's important. in November 2016. We're coming up just on 7 years. That was the very first experience I had with a psychedelic. It was MDMA. MDMA is not a classical psychedelic, but it works similarly in our brains. It doesn't have necessarily the hallucinations. One of my dear friends sat with me. She was my guide that day. And that day changed my life. It was in that experience where she asked me a series of questions, and I started to understand the patterns I had as a child, where I would read books all night long at 7 and 8 years old. It was to keep myself awake so I didn't have to have dreams about the abuse. I had never realized that until that moment. And that began my journey. And I had no idea that I was going to work through the layers of the trauma until it happened. And again, I have used psychedelics intentionally to get me back. And the more I've gotten me back, the more that is a gift to the people in my life. My parents, my sister, my family gets to have all of Dina back instead of a shell of her because of that prison I lived inside of. I get to have the most incredible relationship with a man I love more than anything and his 3 children. Because I was willing to do the deep work to heal this and love myself where I was at in every moment. Every moment. That first MDMA experience. I was already loving myself more, but that first MDMA experience definitely opened the door to self-love. I would say it opened the door to love, period. I am now going, okay, let's get the tears off my face. The more I did the inner work and let go of layer after layer after layer of the trauma, my voice continued to change. And I would say that it was multiple things. It was peeling back the layers of the trauma, setting myself free, learning how to create safety, which involved showing up to ask for what I wanted, what I needed, what I desired. A really, really big one was speaking my boundaries. Don't touch my body without consent. It's surprisingly done a fairly decent job of that. But let me tell you, I kept people at a significant distance because it was easier that way. Learning to be honest with myself about what was going on inside of me and learning to express that. I spent my entire life talking from a pretty defensive place because I didn't know any other way. I only knew how to show up to defend myself. That was my protection mechanism. if I'm always on the defense, trying to keep people away, to keep myself safe, that's what came through in my voice. So it's been years of peeling back the layers so that I could have me back, so that I could show up and talk from an empowered place, so that I could show up to make videos and audios and to not hide from a camera anymore or the voice recorder. Like, I have made probably hundreds of hours of audio content this year, none of which has yet been released because I've still been in the process of healing myself for me. A lot of people tell me all the time as a content creator, like, share your journey, share your journey. I wasn't moving through this journey for anybody besides myself. This was the thing I got to show up and do for me, first and foremost. And now that I feel solid and grounded and whole and complete inside of me, now I finally get to show up to share it with the world. There was a smoke detector going off. I always laugh when there's sounds like that in the environment because I utilize them. I'm like, oh right, then that's the universe being in agreement. It's going ding, ding, ding. Yes, I showed up for this journey for me, to do it for myself because I deserve to be free inside of me. I deserve to be free inside of my mind and my body and my being. I deserve to get to be all of me, all of the time, knowing how to create safety for myself, how to use this beautiful voice, how to live in this beautiful body. As a petite, pretty woman, I have been scared of the world most of my life. I have had countless inappropriate things said to me about my body and my looks my entire life. Most of my life, I hid behind waist-length long hair and clothes that were too big for me. In my high-pitched voice, scared of the world. For me to be willing to put videos out into the world now to express this human and what I've gone through and what I've learned and how I've transformed and how I own my personal power now, that's a big deal. This is years in the making so that I feel safe enough and grounded enough and competent enough in my personal power that I get to actually do this now. This is no joke. This is no screwing around. This is no dabbling, me having a good time. This is me showing up because this is me in service to what I have learned. This is me in service to the light inside of me. That's beckoning the light inside of you to come out, because I only want to play in a world surrounded by brilliant light beings who understand that they get to come forward into the world with all of their traumas exactly how they are in this moment, to be loved for who they are in every moment. People often, I do a lot of relationship work with people, and they often say, like, oh, I need to be at X place before I can have the person show up in my life to be my partner. And I say, stop that. That's saying that you're not good enough as you are right now. That's a bunch of BS. I know, because I used to have that mindset. I thought, oh, I have to do all of these things. Then when I've done this, then I can have the man. And I said, no, F that. I'm done with that. I got really clear what I was ready for, what I wanted to have show up into my life. And let me tell you, one month after I got really clear, I literally got delivered to his front door for a meditation ceremony. And he is beyond anything I could have imagined. He's better than ticking all of the boxes on my list, and I got a pretty extensive list. It's impressive. Because we both wanted somebody who was willing to do the work in real time, who could love ourselves and each other exactly where we were at. And that's what we have done for the last nearly 4 years. We show up constantly to love each other where we're at, to remind each other, hey, you're doing a great job. I'm not going anywhere. We ask each other nearly every day, baby, will you spend your forever with me? We ask each other every day because we deserve that of ourselves and each other. That's a constant reaffirming that we love ourselves and we love each other in every single moment. And I figured out that as long as I judged myself for being wrong where I was in my personal growth and coming with all this trauma, guess what? Most people got trauma. Welcome to being human. It might be a little t trauma. It might be a capital T trauma. It might be neon flashing letters. It might be multiple types. We're human. It's about loving each other where we're at, trauma and all. That makes for powerful relationships. That's why Sebastian and I have the relationship we do. He was willing to show up and love me and support me where I'm at, not where he thinks I should be. And I've been willing to show up and love him exactly where he's at in every moment, not where I think he should be. And it's a constant reminder. Hey, come back here. You're not over there. I know that's where you want to be, but right now you're right here. I got your back. Can you have your back? We're each other's champions that way. And it is incredible. He is the most generous, compassionate, present, divine masculine man I have ever encountered. And all the women I know think the same thing. They're like, damn, where'd you find him? I'm like, I got delivered to his front door for meditation. That's another video though. That story is pretty incredible. All right, so I share all of this because it's super relevant. It gives you insight into where I'm at, how I'm coming into psychedelic ministry. I've known for the last 2 years since that big journey where I let go of the trauma and I found the frequency of safety inside of me, quite literally. This brilliant light shone right in my face. And I stopped. I had been pretty violently convulsing and shaking, letting go of the energetic trauma that was stored in my body. And I saw this brilliant white light. And I stopped and I articulated. I said, I found the frequency of safety. I can see it and I can feel it in my entire being. And I realized in that moment, the only thing I had ever wanted in my entire life was to feel safe. to feel safe in my body, and to feel safe in my mind. And that moment changed my entire life. Again, if you're judging me because I've chosen to use psychedelics to heal myself, I invite you to turn that around and to see what's here for you, to see where you need to love yourself where you're at and learn to heal whatever's inside of you. Again, the more layers I peeled back to truly, completely free myself from the prison I lived inside of, the more I get to be all of me. And that benefits me. It benefits every one of my relationships, the relationships with my parents, all three of them, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my grandmother. My clients, and even you. Some of you may never work with me in any other capacity than to watch my videos. And that's why I'm putting out a ton of free content, because I did the work. I didn't just show up to do some of the work. I was committed to doing all of the work for me. I chose myself for the first time in my life in a big way. And through that process, I truly got to have the most incredible relationship with myself. And the better the relationship I have with me, the better every single relationship is in my entire life. So I keep doing the work here every day. Every day I'm present to it, even when it's really, really uncomfortable. And let me tell you, I'm in a massive growth phase. It's really uncomfortable. Sebastian and I have had such incredible parallels in our healing work. Both of us recognizing we've internalized different kinds of trauma in similar ways. So we have been able to show up and do our healing work alongside each other, which has given us more access to loving ourselves and each other where we're at, especially when we can go, oh, your pain is my pain, your healing is my healing. Right? So that's kind of the last element here that I wanted to talk about. Sebastian and I have this incredible, incredible connection. Literally, when I got delivered to his door and I opened the door when they said, come in, and I saw him, he was the first thing I saw when I opened the door. I lit up like the Times Square Christmas tree. I've never had that experience in my life with anybody. And it was like the universe going, pay attention to that. And I did, I paid attention. And we have realized through this incredible last 4 years, let me not call it the last 4 years, the first 4 years, through our first 4 years, how connected we are in consciousness, because we're both committed to consciousness. That's what we're here for. We want to explore this. We both have deep meditation practices. We both have practices of exploring extraordinary states of consciousness through movement. We both love to run. So we utilize, like, even long walks. Some of our most incredible work together happens on our really long walks in the woods, right? We utilize these states, and we love to play together. Playing, the first 7 or 8 years of our life, play is our non-ordinary state. Play is one of our best accesses to an extraordinary or non-ordinary state of consciousness, because it's such a natural state to who we are. Through our entire lifespan, I used to teach a class called Play Through the Lifespan or something like that. It was a great class. It was a university class I've taught for years. I loved it. Right? So we have learned that we are deeply connected in consciousness. And the more we do our work together, the stronger that connection is. It quite literally is like the double helix of Dina and Sebastian. It's been beautiful. And there have been significant points in our journey where we've both gone through such a massive energetic shift, like an up leveling, that we've had to take time apart from each other. Time apart that was already kind of in the works, but it was through that time apart that we were able to identify and articulate what those energetic shifts were that were occurring. So the one that we're currently in, like literally, this has been in the last 3 or 4 weeks, is in a whole different level of commitment to ourselves and each other. And I would say actually that's what they're always about, but they happen in different ways with different energies inside of us. This new one is just about a completely new level of owning our own self-worth. Stopping the wrongness of Dina and stopping the wrongness of Sebastian. That's how energy moves out of my body. And that's me doing the work in real time. Stopping the wrongness of Dina and Sebastian. We both like always in parallel, always in tandem, because we're both committed to doing the work together in real time. So we get to always be it. And sometimes one of us might be a little bit ahead, and then one of us has something happen and it like pulls the other one forward. It's pretty amazing and magical. And we'll be in different places, in different countries even, and we'll have similar experiences, and we'll be talking about what our breakthroughs are. And I'm like, I had a similar thing happen, and this is how it happened for me. So it's really incredible. It's really magical. We have similar insights, and we recognize whenever these massive energetic shifts are happening, what typically happens for a lot of people is when they're up leveling, they hit up against a limitation, a new glass ceiling, a new upper limit. And often that's where people sabotage themselves and kick themselves back down to their last known comfort zone, or their most comfortable comfort zone. So what Sebastian and I are aware of is that we keep leveling up, but we're not pushing up against that glass ceiling or that upper limit. We're aware of what it is when we start to approach it. We're aware we're moving up, and we stay present with ourselves and each other to go, I know we're moving up right now, and I'm being really cognizant and really present to and really aware of where we've been and where we're going, and that we're in this upward spiral transition phase. And I'm going to continue to do the work so that I don't hit that and kick myself back down here. So we stay in what I like to refer to as the expansion zone. We get out of our comfort zone. We get to the edge of our comfort zone, and then we step into the expansion zone. And then I like to get us right up against the edge of that, right? When we can stay at the expansion zone edge without, or in this way, get my hand back up there, kicking ourselves through it where it's too uncomfortable. Staying right at the edge is how we continue to grow. If we put ourselves beyond it, it's too much discomfort, and we come back down here. So it's about learning how to get right to the edge, right to the edge, right to the edge of our expansion zone, and stay there and breathe. And then we get comfortable. Oh, and that comfort zone is like, oh, now I'm in my comfort zone again, and I step into the expansion zone, and I find the edge again. And then I go, oh, I'm there. Breathe. And we keep moving through it. So we're at that again. We know for us in this current iteration that there's a lot of dynamics between us that are changing in good ways. But that means we have to stay present with that and let go of what we had, knowing that it gets to be even better now. If we stay attached to who we were in the past, this is another aspect of loving ourselves where we're at. I'm not attached to where Sebastian was yesterday or last week or last month or 4 years ago. I'm not attached to where I was yesterday or last week or last month or 4 years ago. I'm present with where I am and where he is right now. And we love ourselves and each other in every moment. If I get attached to who I think he should be because of who he was yesterday, that is a disservice to me and to him and to our relationship and to everything we're creating in our lives. I show up in service to myself and in service to him and in service to our partnership and relationship and in service to our future, but always loving myself and always loving him exactly where we're at. And that goes for everything else in our life, like the kids. I get to love the kids where they're at for who they are, not who I expect them to be to please me. No, I'm like, hi, beautiful children. Who's here today? What's going on for you? How can I love you and support you with where you're at right now? And, in the past, that was one angry child and one defensive child and one child dealing with perfectionism. And we're constantly working with those to help them move forward, to love themselves even more where they're at. And coming back to modeling who I be. The more I love myself right here where I'm at, and the more I'm over here loving Sebastian exactly where he's at, and the more we love ourselves and our partnership where we're at, that becomes an incredible and powerful model for those kids. And not just those kids, you, the people in our relationship, anybody and everybody that interacts with us now is profoundly impacted because we're loving ourselves where we're at. And who I be is automatically creating the world around me. That's right. The body agrees with it. So we're in a leveling up. This whole, the last 7 years has been so much discomfort for me as I've been willing to peel back the layers and consistently show up to do it differently. Because I knew the only way my life was going to be even greater than it was to do the work right here. I was never going to be able to create something even better for myself if I didn't do the work inside of me. Right? So I've shown up to do that work. And the more I've done that work, the more I've been literally stripped back to the core of who I am, not what I think I need to be for society or a man or my family or a job or anything else. Simply for me, I get to be the core of me. And the more I now get to be in that light that I am, that light gets to come through me. I get to create the things that I'm inspired to create and to always do it perfectly imperfect because I'm human. And that is one of the number one things I'm here to model to you. Do it perfectly imperfect. We are unfortunately not given a manual for being human. That's part of what I'm doing here. I'm here to show you like, hey, I can be a model for some humaning. Would you like to see some other ways to do the humaning that may work for you? Because they're working for me. And I know my clients are getting results. It works for them too. So I'm doing this perfectly imperfect. I'm stripped back to the core of who I am, to the light, right? I took off all the layers and the dungeons and the fortresses and the things covering my light. And now my light gets to shine. I get to be the light of who I am. That is my purpose every day. And to shine my light is what I'm here to do. And however that wants to come through me and how that wants to come through me is psychedelic ministry. I'm here in service to the power of psychedelics. and how they help us transform consciousness, heal trauma, and uplevel our lives and our loves. That's what I'm doing. So I'm sticking with my discomfort. I'm always pushing myself to the edge of my expansion zone and breathing into it. I'm finding my comfort at the edge, and then I can step a little further and a little further. And I do that within myself. I do that within my relationship with Sebastian. I do that in all of my relationships. I'm here to be a great model. I'm here to be a light, inviting your light to turn itself on, to amplify, to rev itself up, to be even brighter, so that we can make an even brighter world together. I am Dina Justice, the human doing, and the infinite being, Dolly Grace. There's another video about that. I am the magic of who I am, and that magic is the minister of magic here in Psychedelic Ministry. I am grateful that you've been here through this video. Thank you for taking time to watch this. You know the routine. This is the social media thing. You do the like, you do the subscribe, you do the follows, you do the shares, you do all the things that helps promote the word and get the message out. Not just for me, but for everybody that needs more light in their life. Please take a moment to send this on, to share it with somebody else. Of course, I always love to get the impact for you. What did you take away? What insights, gems, ahas, light bulbs? Put those in the comments. Let me know. Reach out to us. All of our social links are posted here. Subscribe on YouTube. Yay. And remember, wherever you are inside of yourself, wherever you are inside of the world, and wherever you are inside of the cosmos, you, sweet being, are doing a great job. And know that you are loved. We love you, and we look forward to being with you again soon.